Welcome to ABC Interactive English. I'm Matt.
And I'm Karen. Today we are looking at part 1 of our story called The Skylight Room. So first of all, what's a skylight?
Well, it's just like a window that's on the ceiling or on the roof. So it allows light in from outside.
Well, that actually sounds really cool, but I have to say that I don't think many homes or many houses in Taiwan have a skylight room because most people live in apartments, right?
Yeah, I think I've noticed living in Taipei that most people grow up living in apartment buildings. But when I think about, how I grew up in Canada, most of my friends and people around me grew up in houses.
That's
so
right.
when you have your own house and you have, a roof, you can have a skylight on the roof, which makes the room a lot brighter.
Well, I also lived, in a house when I was in Canada growing up, but I didn't have a skylight room. But I could only imagine that it would be really pretty to look at night. You can look at the stars, right? Did you have a skylight?
I didn't have a skylight in my bedroom.
Okay.
So I was never lying in bed looking up at the stars. And also, the skylights in my house were in the living room.
Oh.
So you weren't often in there at night with the lights off trying to look at the stars. I think if you wanted to look at the stars, you'd go outside.
Okay. Well, how about during the daytime? I guess it probably provided a lot of sunlight.
That's right. It makes the room a lot brighter, especially on sunny days. But it can also make the room a lot hotter in the summer.
Oh, that's true, huh? Okay, so there are some pros and cons of having the skylight in your home.
Yep. So we're going to find out about what is this skylight room in our story when we get into part 1 after this.
All right.
Mrs. Parker had a house with rooms for rent. One day, Miss Leeson came hunting for a room. She was very skinny, and she carried a large typewriter with her.
Welcome back. We are looking at part 1 of the Skylight Room.
That's right. Maybe it's going to be an interesting story. But first of all, let's talk about skylight, and that is a noun. And like we mentioned before in our intro, a skylight is basically a window in the ceiling or the roof, right? So for example, I could say fixed skylights are the most popular skylights you can get. They are fixed and don't open. So there are many different types of skylights, and fixed skylights are the ones where you cannot open. How about the one in your home back in Canada? Were they also fixed skylights?
We had some that were fixed, but we also had some that could be opened.
Oh,
but you had, because the ceiling was very high,
then how can you open them?
we had to have a long stick. It's a special stick, not just a stick.
For the skylight.
For the skylights that you would turn to make the skylight slowly open.
Wow, but what if you forget to close it on a rainy day?
Well, then your house is going to get wet inside.
So you can be forgetful. Okay.
All right, let's start with our story. Mrs. Parker had a house with rooms for rent.
Okay, so we have a character, Mrs. Parker, and she had a house with rooms for rent. What does that mean when you say for rent?
For rent means it is able to be rented, and to rent something means to use something for a particular amount of time by paying an amount of money to someone. So to rent a room in a house would be to pay some money, maybe every month, to live in that room. You could also rent a car, pay for a short time to use a car somewhere.
Or rent a bike.
That's right. Sometimes when I go on vacation, I like to rent a bike so I can see the sights.
So you don't actually buy the bike. You just rent it. You use it for a period of time and then you return it. Okay. So one day, Miss Leeson came hunting for a room. She was very skinny and she carried a large typewriter with her. Okay, so hunting for a room. Usually when we look at this word hunt or to hunt, that is a verb. Usually we would probably think about hunting for animals, right? Killing animals. But actually, right here, we're just saying that she is looking for something, to attempt to find something. I can also say that I'm hunting for a job. Or I could say, I'm going job hunting.
Job hunting or house hunting. In this case, she is house hunting.
So I'm just looking for a place to stay.
So we mentioned that she is a very skinny woman. Yeah. So skinny can mean thin or not having very much fat or muscle. So if someone is very thin, they are skinny.
That's right.
Skinny, you might have heard the word skin.
That's
This
right.
is your skin, which covers your whole body. And this word skinny comes from the meaning that someone is just skin because there's no muscle or fat underneath it. So they are skinny.
So that doesn't really sound like a compliment, right?
So it is somewhat seen as a bad thing to say if you say you're skinny, or especially if you say you're too skinny. And that means that you need to,
Eat some more
food.
because you probably don't look too healthy. Okay, and we're also looking at this word here, typewriter, and that is a noun. So a lot of you guys out there probably don't know what a typewriter is, but a typewriter is a machine that was commonly used in the past and which had keys that are pressed in order to print letters, numbers, or other characters onto paper. So this was the time before computers. Okay, so for example, I could say it was that gift of a typewriter that started him writing. So maybe he didn't have a typewriter before, but once he got it, he got his hands on it, and then he started typing away, and he became a writer.
All right. Well, I guess maybe Miss Leeson's job has something to do with using a typewriter.
That's right. Maybe an author.
Maybe, but I guess we're going to have to wait to find out when we come back after the break.
All right.
Miss Leeson ended up taking the tiny Skylight Room on the 4th floor. Every day, Miss Leeson went out to work. At night, she made copies of papers with her typewriter. When there was no work, Miss Leeson sat on the front steps with the other roomers. She was friendly to everyone, and the gentlemen really enjoyed her company.
Welcome back, everyone. So before the break, we were looking at our story called The Skylight Room. Now, from the beginning, we learned that Mrs. Parker, one of our characters, had a house with rooms to rent. And then one day, there was another character called Miss Leeson. She came hunting for a room, which means to look for a room. And she carried a large typewriter with her. So we were guessing maybe she's a writer, right?
Does some kind of work that requires her to bring this large typewriter.
Exactly. And we're going to find out what happens next.
Okay, so let's begin. Miss Leeson ended up taking the tiny Skylight Room on the 4th floor. Okay, so now we've got from the title, The Skylight Room. So she has chosen to rent this tiny, so very small skylight room, meaning just a room with a skylight. And it's on the 4th floor.
And that's probably like the top floor of the building, right?
I think it must be,
Or
unless
else you
there's
can't have
Yeah.
a skylight room, right? Okay.
All right, so a floor in a building is the level of the building that you are on. So most apartment buildings will have more than, a few floors. So this has 4 floors. Before it was mentioned it's a house, but a 4-floor house is a very big house.
That's right. What floor do you live on right now, Matt?
I live on the 5th floor of my building.
Oh, do you have an elevator?
No, I do not.
So you have to walk upstairs
I have to
every
walk
day.
up 5 floors every time I go home.
What a good exercise.
That's right, it's part of my exercise routine every day.
I'm so glad I don't live on the 5th floor. I live on the 2nd floor. Okay, let's continue. Every day, Miss Leeson went out to work. At night, she made copies of papers with her typewriter. Okay, so every day she still has to go out and work. But at night, she made copies of paper with her typewriter, right? So that's what she does.
Right, I think her job is that she is a typist.
What's a typist?
So back in these days, a long time ago, before there were computers and before there were places you could go to get things printed,
Yes.
you would need to go to a typist to have them to type out, using a typewriter, a copy of maybe your handwritten notes or something you wrote by hand, so that they can be maybe more readable to other people.
Okay, but how about nowadays? I guess typewriters, they don't exist. I mean, typists. We don't really need this job anymore, right?
Yeah, but it still would be nice if I wrote something by hand. I guess some computers can do that now.
Exactly.
But,
Or you can just read it, right?
Oh, that's right. You can use the voice to...
Turn to speech.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Speech to text.
That's right, speech to text.
Yeah.
And then you don't have to type anymore with technology these days.
Continuing with our story, when there was no work, Miss Leeson sat on the front steps with the other roomers. She was friendly to everyone, and the gentleman really enjoyed her company.
She sat on front steps with other roomers. So by roomers, I guess they mean the other people who also rent rooms from Mrs. Parker, right?
Right, so people who room there, you can use room as a verb, meaning to rent a room somewhere. And these people who room in this building are roomers.
That's right. And the gentleman really enjoy her company. So gentleman, that's a noun. Usually when we call someone a gentleman, we are referring to maybe a man who is polite and behaves well towards other people, especially women. So for example, you could say he was a perfect gentleman.
I hear that all the time about myself.
Really? What do you do to make you a perfect gentleman?
I don't know.
Like
I think
pay for meals,
No,
open the door for the ladies?
I say thank you after
They
the
pay
lady
for the-
pays for my meal and holds the door open for me. I say thank you very much. And they say, you're the perfect gentleman.
Really? Okay.
All right, so the gentleman, in this case, enjoyed her company. So company means the state of spending time with other people. It's being their company. And it's usually for enjoyment or friendship. So this gentleman really enjoyed her company. They enjoy her being around and spending time with them.
That's right. So I guess she's a really lovely lady.
Sounds like a nice person that everyone likes to have around.
Okay, well, this is it for today. But don't worry, there's still part 2, and we'll be back to find out what happens next. See you guys next time.
Mrs. Parker had a house with rooms for rent. One day, Miss Leeson came hunting for a room. She was very skinny, and she carried a large typewriter with her. Miss Leeson ended up taking the tiny Skylight Room on the 4th floor. Every day, Miss Leeson went out to work. At night, she made copies of papers with her typewriter. When there was no work, Miss Leeson sat on the front steps with the other roomers. She was friendly to everyone, and the gentlemen really enjoyed her company.
Hi, I'm Tina. 我们来看这一课的重点单字。第一个 skinny 形容词，消瘦的，骨瘦如柴的。Vicky has always been skinny, even though she eats a lot. Vicky 一直都很瘦，即使她吃很多。下一个单字 floor 名词，楼层。My office is on the 5th floor of the building. 我的办公室位于大楼的第5层。下一个单字 gentleman 名词，男士，绅士。它的复数形式是 gentleman， 这里要变成 men。The gentleman opened the door for me. 那位绅士为我开门。最后一个单字 company 名词，陪伴，作伴。Erica enjoys the company of her sister. Erica 喜欢和妹妹一起作伴。接着我们来看重点文法。第一个 for rent 出租，租借。Rent 指的是出租物件，注意它的前面不加冠词。我们来看看这个例句 ：The house next door is for rent. 隔壁的房子正在出租。下一个文法 came hunting for a room 来找雅房。Come 加 VING 表示来做某事。Hunt 在这里是一个不及物动词，意思是寻找、搜寻。注意搭配的介系词要使用 for。我们来看看这两个例句。第一个 Helen came fishing at the lake. Helen 来湖边钓鱼。下一个例句 They are hunting for a new apartment in the city. 他们正在城市里找寻新公寓。最后一个文法 end up 加上 VING 以做某事结尾，用于结果非原先所计划或预期。我们来看看这个例句 We went hiking but ended up getting lost in the forest. 我们去徒步旅行，结果却迷失在森林中。以上就是这一课的重点单字跟文法，回去记得复习哦。我们下一课再见，拜拜。
Hey, it's KiWi on the street. I'm Kiki.
And I'm Winnie.
Oh, Kiki, you are so cute. Did you know that you are just the bee's knees?
Bee's knees? My knees are normal. That's not very nice.
Okay, no. Kiki, this is a very common phrase, and it's actually a compliment.
Oh.
It's telling them how sweet you are, how nice you are. You're just the bee's knees.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It has nothing to do with your knees. Your knees are fine.
Okay, so in English, sometimes there are idioms and phrases that might not be what it seems, and it might actually mean something else. So today, we are going to work on some phrases.
Let's go.
All right, so we are going to work on some phrases today. The first one is 神魂颠倒.
I'll go for head over heels. Head over feet.
Head over heels. Head over feet.
I would choose head over heels.
Head over heels. Are you sure?
Not really, but I would choose that.
Okay, you don't want to change?
Yep. Believe in myself.
And it's a good thing you believe in yourself. You got it correct. Very, very good. Don't listen to me, right?
Okay.
Okay, ready? We have.
重新打起精神.
Okay, get back on one's fist or get back on one's feet.
Get back on one's feet.
Get back on one's feet. Get back on one's feet.
Get back on one's feet.
Get back on one's fist.
Get back on one's fist and sorry, you get back on your feet or get back on one's feet, okay? So what did we learn today? Let's learn about the phrases that we heard today. The first one is head over heels. This is used to describe someone who is totally or extremely enthusiastic about something. You are so passionate or devoted to a certain subject. However, this phrase comes from another phrase that dates back to the 1300s, which is heels over head, which means to be upside down. And it is used to describe when someone has been affected very strongly by something positive. Our next phrase is get back on one's feet. This phrase has been used since the 1800s, and it means to make a full recovery from an illness or to fully adjust to a new situation or any situation. If you think about being affected negatively by something, you might lose balance or be knocked off your feet. So when you're able to stand back up and be on your feet, that means you're able to do things again. So no matter how hard life gets, we can always get back on our feet and try again. That's it for our phrases today. KiWi later.